Top of the evening to you, ladies and gentlemen, and or boys and girls. So we're going to do another little taste test comparison. The 084 on the log is my personal saw. The 880 belongs to a gentleman by the name of Mr. Carsten, and he's been super gracious to allow me to have his saw and do some tweaks here and there. You'll find out in various other videos it's been worked over pretty good. We had to get rid of some of the componentry on that thing so she'd actually run. Anyway, moves right along. We'll be watching it against Cousin Gary's saw. Kind of use his 088 as the benchmark. We ran the 880 against it. Now we're going to run the 880 against my 084. And this is after I've done the torque tweak to it, so it's a few days past the last session we were looking at, where it ran a little bit slower. We took a look at the start of the intake circuit for the airflow on the two different saws, and we noticed that the 084 is lagging pretty hard. And it had one of the early version mufflers, because this is an early version saw, which technically is probably dual ported if you want to talk about the 880 being triple ported. Much more of a better system for flow in those saws than what we see on the early version for the 084s. If we look at the mufflers real quick, so the 880 went back to the tried and true method. Super sweet, it's stainless, super lightweight, but we have a muffler and we have a casing. I love this design. It's the keep it simple stupid method. It's that's my motto. The KISS method anyway. So wide open exhaust comes in. You can see we didn't even hardly run this thing, and it's like, yeah, you can't get it to lean out at all. Going to be a problem with carbon in buildup, blah blah blah. But there's a cavity in here. It goes in. Here's the screen. Cavity in here comes out in a little hole about the size of a dime. I'm thinking you can see that. If we look at there's a couple versions of the 084. In the other video, we looked at the early version. If we look at the muffler on the 084, standard muffler with the casing. They've been using this style for years and years. Ever since, I think the 038 came out, 048, those saws were about 1980 vintage, and they were using this style right here instead of the one piece. But if we look in the 084, there was different versions. This one, particular one, has the fire screen right there, makes the flow a little bit rough, so we dual ported it. But you can see in stock form it has a couple of holes that are about the size of a dime. Here's the late version, a little bit different design. You can see the hole back in there. I'm hoping it's about the same size as the one that's coming out in the 880, and we also have an additional hole right underneath this little deflector right there, or outlet. But we're back to the muffler casing, and I like the Brutus Beefcakes version myself. I think it looks tough. Doesn't really add that much weight, so who cares? But if we look at the exhaust gasket real quick from the 880, we see just how much difference it is where it's going into the muffler. Now that is a significant amount of flow, loss of potential, as you will, in this version. So I reprogrammed the muffler. We're now technically triple ported, and we've done the torque tune to it. I'm going to retune the carburetor. My assistant hopefully is going to be showing up here shortly, and we can get him to monitor the situation as we're making the runs through the log. So I'm going to start warming that saw up a little bit more, since the ground's still frozen solid around here. I know it looks balmy, but it's really not, actually. Now what we're going to find out in some of the later episodes, this thing's working at a different RPM now. It's much lower. And it's motoring right along, basically set up to pull a long bar. And you can see we're getting into the knots a little bit. And I need to revisit, although it's first time mentioned at this point, I did reevaluate the weights of these two saws. It had been a while since I had them both on the scales, and the 084 comes in at 24 pounds even, while the 880 comes in at 26 pounds even. Both tanks fully filled up, so fully fueled and fully oiled. And we're going to mention too that it's almost a gallon of gas to fill both of these saws up to the top in their tanks. It was actually kind of impressive how much fuel they took. Now I'm hoping that my 084, which is down on airflow and down on horsepower, 8.4 versus 8.6 in stock form. We're going to talk about some of the reasons why in some later sessions. And again, I'm just hoping that it's running about even at this point. Now we're going to do a wardrobe change, warm up to 880, and we'll start the process over. That's awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I got it covered. We're going to take a little peek underneath the hood. I'm talking a lot about the airflow differential. We're going to check it out here for a second. Air cleaner's in pretty good shape. Haven't run it too much on this session or this process yet. But if we take a look at the 084, the mounting system's kind of interesting. There's a lot of encumbrances to airflow in this design right here. This isn't actually super awesome performance-wise from my perspective, and that could very well be one of the reasons why this saw is down 0.2 of a horsepower when we compare it to like the 088 and 880 in stock form. The other part of the equation, we're looking at the muffler on the early version 84s were pretty choked down with the way they had the tubes running through the middle and the fire screen set up in there. Until you rework that, it's kind of choked down flow-wise compared to the other two. So that's one of the other reasons. If we take a look at what we see on the 880, we see that the air cleaner isn't super awesome. I've used it a little bit here and there, ran it at Cousin Gary's against his 088. So it's not super dirty, mostly just saw testing. But if we take a look at the start of the airflow tract, it's pretty much wide open for the air to get down in the circuit through the throat of the carburetor, whereas the 084 is kind of choked down a little bit in that regard. We're going to look at some bench talk videos. We'll be checking those out a little bit further and take a look at the mufflers and explain some of the differentials that's also compromising the flow in the 084. So anyway, I just thought that was kind of a noteworthy situation to bring to the forefront. Airflow is definitely down on the 084, both coming in and going out. So if it's running about the same, I'm going to be well pleased. We did triple port the muffler though, so the outflow on this particular saw is better than what we see in a stock version. I guess I meant we're down 0.2 of a horsepower in stock form between these two. If this one runs similar to what we see in the 880, I'm going to be well pleased. The more I run that 880 in this configuration, the more I'm liking that saw. It moves right along. My 084 does pretty good, I think, at this point. Not sure if it's winning though. It's going to be relatively close, I think. But I think the 880 is going to win out overall. So yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching this session. Have a blessed day wherever you might be on God's green earth.